The X-Zone radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone radio and TV show or in any manner endorsed by Rob McConnell, REL-MAR McConnell Media Company, Talkstar Radio Network, its affiliated stations, or employees.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Don't forget X Zone Nation, starting on, Friday, August the 17th. It's the official relaunch of the X Zone Book Club that is headed by Laura Miller, our CEO here at REL-MAR McConnell Media Company. If you're a self-published author and you're looking for a place to get press releases, website help, SEO, that search engine optimization, radio commercials, TV commercials, and much more, a listing on our website at www.xzonebookclub.com. Everything will be there for you as an independent author, something that we here at the X Zone Nation and REL-MAR have been looking into very seriously after we've received all the complaints from authors around the world. We decided to give the authors a place where they can be safe, make money, and prosper. It's plain and it's simple. So that's starting on August the 17th, which is a Friday, and the website www.xzonebookclub.com. My guest this hour, X Zone Nation, is Peter McCUE. He worked for many years as a clinical psychologist in the National Health Service in the United Kingdom. He lives in Scotland. His qualifications include a Ph.D. from the University of Glasgow, awarded for a thesis based on research into the nature of hypnosis. His interest in psychical research goes back decades. He believes that paranormal phenomena occur and that many UFO experiences are genuinely anomalous. He contends that if we want to obtain a comprehensive understanding of ourselves and the nature of reality, these enigmatic phenomena can't be ignored. Peter is the author of a recently published hot book entitled Zones of Strangeness, an examination of paranormal and UFO hotspots. Joining me now from Scotland is Peter McCUE. And Peter, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you very much.
Peter, how did you get involved in UFOs and the paranormal?
My interest in this whole subject goes back to my very early years, I'd say the early teens or even earlier than that. I must admit that it probably arose from a sense of excitement that these subjects elicited in me, even fictional stories about the paranormal. But that soon became a sort of intellectual interest as well as I started reading extensively into the subject. And it intrigued me because if these phenomena are genuine, they don't gel well with traditional conservative ways of looking at the way the universe works. So that's when my interest began.
Peter, you worked as a clinical psychologist for many years. Did patients report UFO and paranormal experiences to you?
They did occasionally. I would sort of pick up on anything that they mentioned perhaps about that because of my particular interests. but some patients did. I think the problem with patients and indeed with the public generally in talking to professionals is that there's probably a natural reticence to mention experiences of that type because of the prejudice against admitting that sort of thing, of fear that they might be regarded as insane or cookies or not very coherent and logical. But yes, some patients did mention such experiences to me. Not many, I would say, proportionately, but some did. And I took quite an interest in those cases that were mentioned to me.
All right, Peter, please stand by. You and I have to take our 2-minute commercial break. We'll be right back. X-Zone Nation, my special guest this hour is Peter McCUE, and he is coming to us from Scotland, thanks to the good people at Skype. 1-800-610-7035, worldwide toll-free. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Don't forget, you can listen to the X-Zone archives 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year, with no charge at all, at www.xzonepodcast.com. My name's Rob McConnell. I'll be back in 2. Don't go away.
Taxman's taken all my dough and left me in my stately home, blazing on a sunny afternoon, and I can't sail my yacht.
I'll tell you something, X-Zone Nation. It certainly is a sunny afternoon here in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. It is 97.6 degrees outside. Last night we had a rainfall that I can only say was torrential. Within 1 hour, we had a rainfall of 6.5 inches of rain. Mind you, my lawn needed it desperately. I just hope it isn't too late. X-Zone Nation, my guest this hour is Peter McCUE. He is in Scotland. He's the author of a book that I believe should be on every bookshelf of anyone who's interested in ufology or the paranormal. The name of the book is Zones of Strangeness, an examination of paranormal and UFO hotspots. It's available on Amazon. It's available throughout the internet. All you have to do is just type in Zones of Strangeness, an examination of paranormal and UFO hotspots into your favorite search engine. Mine is Google, and they'll pop up all over the place. It's that simple. Peter, thanks very much for taking time to join us today.
Not at all.
As I said, you worked as a clinical psychologist, and I was wondering if you could give us a couple of examples when patients actually talk to you as a psychologist, without getting into too many details and breaking any confidentiality that there is, about some of the cases that you may have been told about.
Yes, one of my colleagues, knowing of my interest in this subject, told me about a patient he was seeing who'd had a traumatizing UFO experience some 40 years previously. And he spoke to her on my behalf, and she agreed to talk to me. And I spoke to her and went with her to the site of the experience. This experience occurred when she was about 13, and she and a friend were working part-time in a cafe, and it was night, and they were coming back. They got off a bus, and they saw a light in the sky, which I think at first she took to be a plane. And they headed into a sort of a road, a little alley to head towards where they lived. And this object made some movements, and it got closer to them, and it seemed to be black or dark grey with a circular with some sort of protuberance on top, a couple of flashing red lights on the base, and also a circle of white lights. And as they were walking down the lane, this thing came closer, and a woman walking ahead of them, a woman perhaps in her 60s, shouted, "Oh my God," and she rushed back and gathered the two girls together, and they rushed towards the entrance to a distillery. And they made the sign of the cross, and they were illuminated from above. And this woman, this patient of my colleagues, whom I'll call Susan, she was terrified, and I presume the other two were as well. And this experience seemed to go on just for a matter of minutes, perhaps. And then when she looked up, the UFO was a bit further away, but still quite close. It then made a couple of movements, perhaps, before shooting off. Now, it should have taken her about 7 or 10 minutes to get from the bus to her home. She should have arrived home about 10:55, but actually when she got in it was about 11:45. Now this experience left her with post-traumatic symptoms. She had had other trauma in her life. She'd been sexually abused apparently as a child, but the UFO experience itself seemed to produce flashbacks, which had abated by the time I saw her. But it was nevertheless a very disturbing experience with long-lasting effects on her. Another case was a man whom I'll call James Montgomery. I've written about in an article actually, but he had a welter of experiences in different locations, flats, that spanned the haunting, poltergeist, UFO categories. One of the UFO experiences, for instance, involved missing time as well. He was walking to buy some takeaway food with a friend, and they saw a light in the sky. And when they got back to the friend's home, the food was cold, and a period of time was missing they couldn't account for. And the interesting thing about this particular person is that his experience did span quite a wide range of paranormal categories.
As a clinical psychologist, Peter, have you noted any common threads in those who claim to have had paranormal UFO encounters?
Well, in my work as a clinical psychologist, I rarely saw people who were referred with any specific reference in the letter to me about paranormal experiences. It was more mainstream mental health problems, anxiety, depression, phobias, and that sort of thing. My experience and knowledge of witnesses to the paranormal has really been through my private sort of research interests and so on, rather than through my job.
Well, let me ask you this then, as a professional. During your research into your investigation into UFOs and paranormal, based on your training as a psychologist, have you seen or have you discovered any common threads in the people who see UFOs or who encounter the paranormal, or any overlapping thereof?
Well, with some people with haunting and type cases, I have found some of those people to be perhaps mentally unstable.
Right.
But I emphasize the word some, because others certainly I haven't felt that is the case. For instance, I was a member of a society a while back that would receive contacts from the public who felt that they had some paranormal activity perhaps going on in their home. Now, some of these people did seem to be unwell, I mean, to put it bluntly.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say they all did. And therefore, I think it would be totally wrong to generalize and say that the majority or all people who report paranormal phenomena are in any way neurotic or psychotic or disturbed.
Is it possible, Peter, that these people who report strange events, such as events within the realm of the paranormal or UFO sightings, have the ability that others in the general populace may have shut off at an earlier age, and something within the people who have these encounters or these sightings, something in their life has kept this ability clicked on?
Well, that's an interesting idea. In fact, it's something I mention in the book, the idea that it's possible that we all are potentially psychic, but with many of us that the valve is switched off or switched to a low level at least. Yeah. From the point of view of getting on with everyday life, I think it would be actually disconcerting to be too psychic, as it were. I mean, for instance, if you or I knew well in advance when loved ones were going to die or become seriously ill, our lives might be shrouded with a total sadness,
Right.
and particularly if we couldn't do anything about it. By the same token, if we all had consciously available psychokinetic powers, that could be dangerous, because people with a sadistic or unpleasant streak could use that to deliberately torment or harm other people, using psychokinesis to produce poltergeist type effects, for instance. So it may be that for the purpose of getting on with everyday life, it's better that if we all are potentially psychic in some way, that we don't all have access to those facilities.
How do you explain then, Peter, someone who claims to have been abducted by an extraterrestrial, or they have a lapse of time, the missing time element? These people believe with everything that they know that what they have experienced is real, and yet many people on the outside who hear the experience say, "Oh, come on, what's wrong with you?"
Personally, I take these experiences very seriously. I know it's customary among psychologists, skeptical psychologists, commenting to talk about things like sleep paralysis and perhaps the effect of ambient magnetic fields, or even dissociative tendencies and so on. And I've no doubt that in some cases these factors may be a part of it. One of the things that impresses me about these sorts of missing time experiences is that sometimes they're collective. Now, if these experiences were due to private psychopathology or even magnetic fields in the environment, you wouldn't expect the witnesses to experience the missing time at starting and ending at the same point at the same time. That seems unlikely. Therefore, I take the experiences very seriously. However, and this comes on to my sort of general idea of what may, and this is very tentative speculation, but my general idea of what's behind these phenomena. I think what these phenomena may entail, cutting across the board from poltergeist, ghosts, UFO sightings, and abduction experiences, is a manipulation by some sort of higher intelligence, not necessarily extraterrestrial or from some other place or another time or another dimension, but maybe something that's been here with us forever. That is able to manipulate our perceptions, manipulate our memories, manipulate matter, and produce dramatic performances. Therefore, it may be that when someone has a missing time experience in connection with a UFO, it may be that they're not literally lifted up and taken to an extraterrestrial spacecraft, but nevertheless, it could well be a genuinely paranormal experience.
Then how come, if this is the case, there are not scientists who experience this, doctors who do not experience this? It seems like it's always John Q. Public who cannot put a logical explanation into what's going on.
Well, I suppose one possibility is that if you're in a science-based profession where your reputation depends on being conventional to some degree, if you have an experience like that, you're not going to necessarily be too frank about it. And interestingly, Raymond Fowler, a well-known American ufologist, he's written about his own experiences of the abduction type, and I don't know whether he's only come out with this in more recent years, but he used to work in the defense industry. Now, I'm not sure whether he reported these experiences earlier in his career, and it may have been possibly for him risky.
All right, let's hold on to this because I've got to take my news break, Peter. Peter McCUE is our special guest, Exonation. The name of his book is Zone of Strangeness, an examination of paranormal and UFO hotspots. To find out where you can buy it, all you have to do is go to your favorite search engine, type in his name, Peter McCUE, or his book, Zones of Strangeness, an examination of paranormal and UFO hotspots. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as the X Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
My name is Michael Telstar, Canada's leading mentalist from Toronto, Ontario.
Hi, my name is Belinda, and you're listening to my dad, Rob McConnell, on the X Zone. This is Psychic Dorothy from St. Catharines, and you're listening to Rob McConnell.
Hello, my name is Holly Reeves, an astrologer from Astro For You, and you're listening to Canada's #1 paranormal radio show, The X Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Welcome to The X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Remember it all very well. Looking back, it was the summer I turned 18. We lived in a one-room run-down shack on the outskirts of New Orleans. We didn't have money for food or rent, to say the least. We were hard-pressed. Then Mama spent every last penny we had to buy me a dancing dress. Well, Mama washed and combed and curled my hair, and she painted my eyes and lips. Then I stepped into a satin dancing dress that had a split from the side, clean up to my hip. It was red velvet trimming and it fit me good. And standing back from the looking glass, there stood a woman where a half-grown kid had stood. She said, "Here's your one chance, fancy, don't let me down." She said, "Here's your one chance, fancy, don't let me down." Mama, daddy, little baby.
Welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. Peter McCUE is my special guest. Peter's the author of Zones of Strangeness and an examination of paranormal and UFO hotspots. All you have to do is go to your favorite search engine, type in Peter's name, or Zones of Strangeness, an examination of paranormal and UFO hotspots. It's also available on Amazon. 1-800-610-7035, worldwide toll-free. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Peter, have you ever seen a UFO, or have you ever been involved in a paranormal experience?
I'm not aware of having seen a UFO. I may have had paranormal experiences. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
I say that not sure because it may be that low-level paranormal experiences are occurring in our lives without our necessarily noticing or easily forgetting them. I'll give you one example.
Sure.
Years ago, when I started reading about parapsychological experiments, I noted that there were research studies where people were asked to guess the identity of Xena cards, and I just cut a pack of cards with my, broke a pack of cards, and just the image of something like the 7 of clubs. I can't actually remember what card it was came into mind, and I was right. That was the card I'd actually got, but there was a 1 in 52 chance of that, perhaps. But when I tried it again, I didn't seem to get a high rate of success. Now, whether that was purely chance or whether it was paranormal, I don't know.
Is it possible, Peter, that when you cut the cards and your hand touched that cards, that there could be a connection between the sensory of the touch to something that we have yet to discover, that in your mind, the 7 of clubs popped up, and I was wondering if there's a connection there between what happened with you with the 7 of clubs and what many blind people report as being their extra eyesight, or the image from the inner eye.
I'm not sure about that, to be honest. I don't know. As I say, with my own experience, I wouldn't place too much stock in it because it was a sort of one-off thing. But it could be that paranormal ESP, for instance, is operating not only in a dramatic way with very obvious things, but it could be operating at a low level with us at times.
You talk about hotspots. Could you give us your definition of what a hotspot is?
Yes, this is actually quite complicated because popularly people tend to apply the label hotspot or window area where there's been a rash of, say, UFO sightings or other odd events. I suppose speaking, the term should only really be applied if one can say with some degree of certainty that there's a higher than expected number of incidents. But that's very hard to know, because if you get a rash of reports of UFO hotspots in, say, Hamilton, Ontario, unless you've got comparative data from the neighbouring areas, it's hard to know. The other problem, of course, well, one of the other problems is that once you get reports coming out, other people might come forward and say, yeah, I saw a UFO that day too. But it may be that if you put the microscope or on another area, you'd find, and made sufficient inquiries, you'd find that there was perhaps just as high a rate of sightings there. So it's a bit of a statistical problem because we don't have reliable comparative data. There's also the confusing factor of military activity. If you're near an Air Force base, there could be misinterpretation of aircraft, and also the factor of hoaxing as well. However, having said that, I think there are some places that one can say, at least for a time, have at least a prima facie case for being called hotspots.
Britain is very well known for Stonehenge. What is your opinion of Stonehenge, and would you consider Stonehenge to be a hotspot?
I'm not aware that Stonehenge itself is a hotspot, but interestingly, an area a little to the west of that, the Warminster area, around the town of Warminster in the same county of Wiltshire, in the 1960s, that became an alleged hotspot. Initially, there were some strange sounds reported in the area. Very soon, it became an area that was reputed to be a hotspot for UFO sightings, but also other anomalies. And this went on. This sort of alleged activity went on for more than 10 years. And one of the problems about this case, skeptics say, well, a lot of the reports from the Warminster area were filtered through a journalist called Arthur Shuttlewood, who had a flowery turn of phrase in his writing, and it's been suggested that he wasn't a very reliable reporter. However, I'm not aware that he literally made things up, and he also spent a great deal of time, his own time, on the local hills, sky watching. So I doubt whether he was an out-and-out fraud intent on misleading other people. It may be that he wasn't a very critical reporter, and maybe he misinterpreted some of the things he saw. But the alleged phenomena in that area don't rely entirely on him. There is testimony from others. So I'm open to the possibility that there was genuine activity in that area.
1-800-610-7035, worldwide toll-free. Our special guest this hour is Peter McCUE. He is the author of Zones of Strangeness, an examination of paranormal and UFO hotspots. It's available at Amazon.com and other online bookstores as well. Peter, in your book, you give lots of case examples and also discuss theories. Could you say a bit about the various theories that people have put forward to explain ghostly phenomenon?
Yes, in the book I divide the theories about ghostly phenomena into two categories: naturalistic, that is, theories which account for the phenomena in normal terms, and psi-based theories. Psi is a term used by parapsychologists to refer to paranormal phenomena, a general collective term. Now, under the naturalistic headings, one obvious approach is to say that, well, when people experience or reportedly experience haunting or poltergeist type phenomena, this is based on a misinterpretation of prosaic events. Another possibility in the naturalistic category is hoaxing. Another theory which has been considered, but I don't think it's very widely applicable, is that underground streams could cause vibrations and unusual sounds, which might be interpreted as spooky phenomena. Low frequency sound, infrasound, has been suggested as a possible cause of some ghostly phenomena. Vibration from seismic activity. But perhaps the most significant naturalistic theory is that ghostly phenomena, and indeed some UFO phenomena, are the result of ambient magnetic fields, either arising from geological conditions or indeed from man-made sources. And there is some evidence suggesting that in some haunted places that there do seem to be unusual magnetic fields, which could perhaps affect the brain or indeed affect equipment itself. Again, a problem, though, I have with this magnetic theory, although I don't reject it in total, I think it doesn't easily account for collective experiences. For instance, if you and I are in a house and we at the same time see a ghost,
right?
We see the same ghost. If it were a magnetic field affecting our brains, you wouldn't expect the content of our experience to be exactly the same, and you wouldn't expect it to begin at exactly the same time. By the same token, if we were sitting together and we took LSD, you wouldn't expect your drug experience to exactly match mine and to begin at precisely the same time. Whereas there are lots of cases of UFO activity experiences and ghostly activity where the phenomena seem to occur to the witnesses at the same time.
But how likely is it, Peter, that two people see the same ghost at the same time?
I can't give you a precise figure, but there are plenty of case examples where this has happened. For instance, in my book, I discuss cases where people are driving and they see another car coming, or the people collectively witness something. So I think that there are quite a few cases on record where people do collectively see the same apparition.
Is there such? I've heard it said that at times people can actually project these images into other people who have an open mind to the power of suggestion. So if you've got one person who has a strong enough will, for example, and you've got 5 or 6 other people who want to see something, they believe in it, that the person with the strongest will can actually project an image into the minds of these other people.
Do you mean telepathically, or do you mean by normal means?
Telepathically.
Oh, yes. Well, under the psi-based theories, which I haven't mentioned yet, one of the psi-based theories is that apparitions, haunting apparitions, and indeed other apparitions, may be produced by telepathic interaction among people occurring at a subconscious level. There was a British researcher, long deceased now, but called Tyrrell, who suggested that for instance, in cases where someone has maybe a fatal accident and a relative at a remote place sees an apparition of the loved one at the time of his or her death, and these cases are known as crisis apparitions. He also suggested that hauntings, recurrent apparitions occurring in particular locations, could be mediated by telepathy. And in fact, he went as far as to suggest that there could be the surviving self of a deceased person who's broodingly reminiscing about his or her past life may somehow trigger off hallucinations in the minds of people living in the previous residence. To be honest, I think there are problems with that theory because a lot of hauntings involve physical phenomena. And Tyrrell's theory doesn't readily account for the physical manifestations which often occur in cases of haunting. It may be true, but it's not very comprehensive.
But what kind of physical manifestation are you talking about?
I'm talking about object movements, maybe the pulling of bedclothes, the disappearance of an object from one position and its appearance somewhere else. In practice, it's often hard to distinguish between, as you may know yourself, between cases that are sometimes called hauntings and cases that are known as poltergeist cases. People sometimes make a distinction, but it's hard to sometimes distinguish between these two types of case. And a lot of hauntings do involve not only sensory phenomena such as sensations of cold, seeing things, but also minor poltergeist-type activity. I can give you one example, for instance, a case I investigated here in Scotland. A man who's in the house of a family, the there'd been numerous little incidents over the years, and even before the man was with his current partner. But while he was with his current partner, and one incident was he went to a metal container in his living room one morning to take out 3 20-pound notes that were there, and found them missing. They were folded up notes, so he had folded these notes, and they were in the tin, but they weren't there when he went to get them. And he was quite disconcerted by this. He left the house. He returned at lunchtime that day to find 3 uncreased 20-pound notes lying on his coffee table.
One quick question comes to mind. Was he married?
He was in a relationship. He was. I don't think he not formally married, but effectively in a partnership.
But you see, at something like this, I ask the question: how do we know?
I don't think anyone else had been in the house between when he left the house.
You see, the question in my mind when I hear something like this, Peter, is how do we know that they are the 3 same bills that he left in the pot? That somebody might. I don't think they were. You know, so
that was the point I was making. The notes in the container had been folded and were presumably creased. The notes on the coffee table were the same denomination,
right? But
they looked new. You see, what I think may be going on with this sort of case is that these aren't random phenomena produced by magnetic fields. I think they're orchestrated.
All right, Peter, let's hold it right there. We've got to take our final break for this hour. Interesting conversation with an interesting gentleman. X-Zone Nation, my guest this hour is Peter McCUE. He's the author of Zones of Strangeness, an examination of paranormal and UFO hotspots. All you have to do is type in Peter McCUE or Zones of Strangeness, an examination of paranormal and UFO hotspots into any search engine, and bang, you'll be able to find it, purchase it online, and it gets delivered right to your door. We'll be back on the other side of this break with our guest, Peter McCUE, as the X-Zone continues from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone. Peter McCUE is my guest this hour, and Peter worked for many years as a clinical psychologist in the National Health Service in the United Kingdom. He presently lives in Scotland. His qualifications include a Ph.D. from the University of Glasgow, awarded for theses based on research into the nature of hypnosis. His interest in psychical research goes back decades. He believes that paranormal phenomena occur and that many UFO experiences are genuinely anomalous. He contends that if we want to obtain a comprehensive understanding of ourselves and the nature of reality, these phenomena cannot be ignored. The name of his book is Zones of Strangeness, an examination of paranormal and UFO hotspots. So in conclusion, Peter, you know, are you optimistic that our understanding of these enigmatic phenomena is likely to improve greatly in the foreseeable future, or will they continue to be part of a pseudoscience?
Well, I'm not optimistic. It's perhaps a depressing thing to say, but I'm not optimistic that we'll gain a very clear understanding of these things in the foreseeable future. I don't regard them as pseudoscience. I think they're important phenomena, very important, because they do suggest that our conventional models of reality, unless they can adjust to take account of these phenomena, are incomplete. But I'm not sure that we'll gain an understanding. As I've said before, I do wonder whether these phenomena are orchestrated by some sort of intelligence that is essentially producing a kind of paranormal theater. And the content of the paranormal theater can vary. It may be UFOs, it may be Bigfoot, It may be ghosts. And these entities themselves may not have any permanent existence, but what we're being exposed to theatrical displays for some purpose or some reason that isn't clear. And now, if that's the case, it may be that this intelligence, which is running the show behind the scenes, isn't going to reveal itself any more than it has over the last 50 or 100 years. So it may be that we, as I say, we're not going to have hard and fast answers.
But throughout the United Kingdom, Peter, and correct me if I'm wrong, there are stories that go back centuries pertaining to ghosts and hauntings.
Yes.
So if this was just somebody or some other force that is manipulating us, they've had 300-400 years of having their fun. Why by now don't we have a better idea as to who or what these forces are?
Well, one possibility is that this is conjecture, of course, is that these performances are intended to keep us on our toes, to challenge complacency. So that if we humans think that we've got a good grasp on reality and we have a rather narrow, mechanistic, materialistic interpretation of the way the universe works, by producing phenomena now and again which don't really fit with that, it may be saying, look, hang on, you need to be thinking a bit more. A bit like a kind of avuncular relative giving riddles to his grandson or nephew.
Peter, you know what? We've run out of time for tonight. I'd love to have you back in the next week or so to talk more about this. It's a fascinating topic. You're a great guy. I love the way you think, the way you come across. And I just wish to heaven there were more people like you out there taking the UFOs and the paranormal into an arena that makes sense. And you do a great job of that, Peter.
Well, thank you very much.
Peter, it's been my great pleasure. Peter McCUE has been our guest, X Zone Nation. He's the author of Zones of Strangeness, an examination of paranormal and UFO hotspots. I'll be back on the other side of this break with the news. Don't go away.